What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another very exciting episode right here on the MIgardener channel. I am so excited for today's episode because I don't know if you can see it, but I can see my breath. It's like 39 degrees this morning. We had a really light frost this morning at about 6 o'clock in the morning, and it reminded me to get out here and talk about frost protection. Now, the frost was not heavy enough to stick. It barely stuck to anything, just the lowest parts of the ground where the coldest air settled. And it reminded me that I had to get out here and talk about frost protection because whenever we get to this time of year, the last couple weeks of the season, the question always comes up, Luke, I'd really like to squeeze every last bit out of my garden. How can I do that? And what are the best ways to protect my plants from the frost? And we've done several videos on frost protection, but there are a lot of times where I see people suggesting things or asking about things that I would not recommend. And so in this episode, I'm going to go through some ill-advised frost protection methods, some methods that I would not recommend using because they can actually cause damage and harm to your plants. The first method that I would not recommend using is the very ill-advised garbage bag method. Now, I don't have any black garbage bags, but this is one that surfaces in the gardening forums and the Facebook groups every single year. Is if you're really worried about your plants, throw a throw a garbage bag over your plants, like this. Check it out. All right, so the theory goes that you take a garbage bag and you put it over top of the plant that you're trying to protect, like a pillowcase in a hostage situation. And the theory is that this will protect it from frost. Now, the logic is very sound. It makes a lot of sense on paper, but really once you start looking at the reality, that's where reality does not meet expectations. And why is that? Well, the theory is that this protects it from any frost that would land on the leaves. It acts as like a little mini greenhouse. And I've seen lots of people advocating this because if it's a really light frost or something like that, that it seems like the frost would land on the garbage bag and it would just kind of slough right off. Not quite true. Why is that? Well, it's because of the respiration process. When you breathe out, take a glass window pane or some type of cold cup and breathe into it. What comes out? You have carbon dioxide and water. Well, plants, when they respire, they give off oxygen and water. The water is really the point that we're worrying about, because what happens is the water actually will cause condensation on the inside of the bag. If you doubt me, take a bag like this and put some rocks on it and set it in the grass. Over time, you're going to notice that there's a lot of water building up on the underside of the plastic bag, even though it never rained. And that's because all the grass is respiring and it's giving off oxygen and water, and the water is condensing on the bag. And so the very same thing will happen underneath here, only it has nowhere to go. Traditionally, normally when this plant respires, it just goes into the air. But when it's trapped there, it actually causes kind of a greenhouse effect. And that greenhouse effect holds that humidity and that water right near the leaves, which then condenses on the bag. And the problem is that the leaves are touching the edges of the bag. The leaves are actually coming in contact with the outside air. And so when the outside air is, say, like 32 degrees, that water is actually going to freeze. It's actually cause more damage because when water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. But then something happens because of the energy that's released. So water, fun fact for you all, water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, but it actually takes a lot of energy to actually freeze the water. But once the water is frozen solid, all of that energy is then released. And the problem is the temperature plummets very quickly. And so water freezes at 32 degrees, but scientists have actually found that once water is in a solid state, the temperature then can snap down as low as 29 degrees. And so it plummets very quickly because of just the energy being released. And so what you don't want to do is you don't want to have all of that super cold temperature on your leaves, because it's actually going to cause frost burn or like frostbite or almost like freezer burn on your leaves, and that can actually cause them to die. So this is not a good method for that reason. All right, using the fig as our test subject again, we're going to talk about the second method of frost protection that I do not advocate, and that is the wall of waters frost protection. Now, there are a lot of gardeners that have heard about this, where if you spray your plants with water, that as the water freezes, it will actually, because of the energy that it takes to freeze water, that it will actually keep the foliage or the flowers or the fruit above freezing. And there are a lot of orchards that actually apply this in early spring. And the idea is that if you continually spray your plants with water and keep them always wet throughout the period where there is the highest probability of frost, that all of that energy that would cause frost goes into trying to freeze the water, and it actually keeps the plant tissue protected. Now, this does work. The only issue is the fine print, and that's that it works if you have the right systems in place. And the problem is so many gardeners don't have the right systems in place. The first one is that a lot of gardeners try to use a sprinkler. And a sprinkler is not as great because it actually does not have a fine mist. A sprinkler, many sprinklers give off large jets of water, or streams of water as they're going, whether it's an oscillating or the kind of traditional circular sprinkler. They give off jets or streams of water. That is a high pressure stream of water and then nothing. That is going to cause there to be water and then nothing, right? So wet, dry. So if I'm the plant, right? If this is the plant, and I have the oscillating sprinkler on, so when it's tipping towards the plant, it's wet. When it's tipping away from the plant, what's happening? Well, it's dry, and there's no water. There's not continual water. That's why the farms, they use what is called a micro sprinkler system. Micro sprinkler systems are actually these little sprinkler heads that are posts, and they shoot water up into the canopy rather than down and needing like a bunch of overhead stuff. They just run these sprinklers that have these little jets where they have a continual jet for like a single tree or like a group of trees. And so that really helps to continue to have a good water supply on the leaves, so that there's no dry periods. Because if there's dry periods, it's going to cause freezing, and that freezing will, like we talked about in the first example, cause a tremendous amount of damage. The second thing why this wall of waters doesn't really work on a home scale is because a lot of people are using their water right from their home. And the water right from their home is not a warm source of water. You can use your hot water, but your hot water tank's going to run out in like 30 to 45 minutes of using it. Having hot water is really important. And many of these farms actually have underground wells, or they have retaining ponds, which keep the water very warm. And that allows the water to be even warmer, so that when it comes out in a mist, it takes even more energy to freeze that water. So you and I, we don't have that warm water. It's just whatever comes out of the house. And the problem is much of our water comes in underground pipes. And the underground pipes, they keep your water at around like 60, maybe 55 degrees or so, and in winter even colder. And so you're just not going to get that nice warm water that you're going to get from the sprinkler systems that large scale farms have. So it's going to cause you far more damage, and you just don't have the probability of success that a lot of farms have. So, and there are people that have success with it. Don't get me wrong, but my goal here is to give you better alternatives so that you have better chances for success. Not like a 1 out of 10. I want to give you like an 8 out of 10 probability of success. So, with that being said, let's go over to the third and final method of frost protection that I do not recommend. All right, now the third and final frost protection method that I do not recommend is actually one that is outright false. And that's the premise that if you water your plants with sugar water before a frost, it will help protect them. And that's because sugar water freezes at a lower temperature than just pure water. Now again, this idea on paper sounds like it would work, but in reality, that's just not how plants work. Plants do create sugars through photosynthesis that then goes into the roots. And that's what protects them throughout winter, are those sugars that they store in the roots. All that excess energy goes down into the roots to protect them and be used as energy for the following spring. But if you water your plants with sugar water, we've talked about this with how to make your tomatoes sweeter, and ways that don't work to make your tomatoes sweeter. Watering your tomatoes with sugar water does not work for the exact same reason that it doesn't protect your plants from the frost, and that's that plants don't uptake sugar water. They just don't. Sugar molecules are far too large to be let into the root fibers of plants. You see, the root fibers are like a one-way valve. If you've ever taken like a mattress or some type of like, blow-up toy and had to squeeze the valve to blow air in, and when you release, no air comes out, that's a one-way valve. And the roots are very much a one-way valve. They say, I need water, I need nutrients, I need whatever it is, and they actually take that in through their one-way valve. But the problem is that the one-way valve is only so large, and sugar molecules are too large to go in through that one-way valve. And so sugar does not absorb into the plant itself. It's just going to stay in the soil, and it will not work. So that's another third and final thing that, again, in theory should work, because you're applying the freezing temperature of sugar water to frost protection of plants and the fact that the plants make sugar, but the two don't really go together in reality. So I hope you guys understand that I'm not trying to call anybody out. I'm just really trying to get that correct information out there, because that's what I'm here for. That's why I love what I do, is because it helps you guys grow better and be more informed gardeners. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned something new. And as always, this is Luke from the MIgardener channel, reminding you to grow big or go home. And we'll catch you all later. See ya. Bye.